All right, welcome to part two. We are going to implement a Google ad into our mobile app for iOS. All right, so when we left off, one of the things that happens, you run this, Firebase tries to talk to Google's servers, and depending on whether or not it's successful, that setup screen add Firebase to your iOS app, run your app to verify installation. This will let you know whether or not you succeeded or not. So I didn't show it in the previous video because it was just spinning. It usually just takes a while. But yeah, there it is. All right, and we're back to our app. Awesome. All right, so we can continue on in Xcode from here. All right, so now we can change this a little bit. First of all, app is not going to be app is the only thing we use, and then AddMob is the only thing we use. We don't use types and we don't use future. So we can get rid of those. All right. Now we're just going to keep this simple. The app is just going to be just on the screen. It's not going to move or hide or anything like that. This is just to get it appearing on the screen. So if we look at the tutorial real quick, get started Firebase C++. After we do this, there are special test strings to always serve test ads that you can use while you're developing your application. When you actually set up your AddMob account, that's where you'll actually create real ads and do all that stuff. And when you get to that point, you know what you're doing and you don't need a tutorial video to really show you how. So first thing we're going to do is get these things going on. So first we're going to do a banner view just because it's really easy. All right, so we'll switch back to Xcode. All right, we're going to do a banner view. Okay, we're also going to do just regular AddMob, and then we need the types because there's things we have to set up with the size. So include, should we spell that right? Firebase, AddMob, types. Okay, all right. And then we'll also need include Firebase future. Now, let me explain what each of these is for. This is for the actual banner view we're going to do. Types is because we need to define what type of banner we're going to use. Future is one of the objects that gets returned when you create and initialize and show or request an ad, and you use it. Because all these things kind of happen on background threads that we don't have access to, the AddMob framework and the Firebase framework uses these future objects to kind of communicate, hey, we are loaded, hey, we finished initializing, all that kind of stuff. All right, so the first thing that we need to do, if we look at the tutorial, let's just take a quick glance at it and see what's going on. So the first thing we have to do, we need to create, all right, we need to create a banner view. And then we need to specify the size of it. Then we need to initialize it, okay? And then we need to make an ad request. We have to fill in the ad request properties. Then we need to actually do the request. And then once all that stuff is good to go, we can load it. All right, so now let's just get through the first part of this and I'll explain how to show it, all right? So first we need to make it. Now you'll notice just looking at this right here, this is just like a free variable, and then this is being assigned via new, so nothing is being, there's no safe, ensuring that the memory that's allocated is deallocated. So let's deal with that first, okay? So we'll go over here. We're gonna add some private member variables. First one is gonna be unique pointer. All right, and we're going to do a unique pointer of this banner view. So Firebase, AddMob, banner view. So now the reason behind this is that when a unique pointer goes out of scope, it automatically deletes and frees the memory that was allocated for the object that it's holding. So basically when our main content component is destroyed, it's going to automatically delete this guy. So that's going to make life pretty easy. However, because the banner view is not just like a regular object and it's initialized in a static way, we have to manually delete it. So we'll just go if, in our destructor, if banner view dot get to make, if we were ever allocated, if the banner view object was ever allocated, we need to actually destroy it manually. Banner view destroy. Okay, and then this way, like, it'll be totally freed, and then the unique pointer itself will get released. Okay, so that explains that part. All right. The next thing that happens, if we look at this line right here, initialize, and we need to cast our add parent, which is going to be an iOS UI view. It needs to be cast to this type. Now, the thing about that, in order to get our UI view in iOS, it has to be on the screen. Now, in order for it to be on the screen, the message manager in Juice has to be active, so we need to wait until the message manager is active for that to happen. So we're going to inherit timer. Okay. Void timer callback, override. And now we are going to start timer for 1,000 milliseconds or 1 second. And basically when this timer fires, void main content component timer callback. We're only going to do this once. Okay, so as soon as the timer fires, we're going to stop triggering the timer. When this is called, the view of our application will actually be on screen. So this is where we can actually make stuff. All right, so let's make our banner view. Banner view equals std make unique. It's a Firebase add mob banner view, and it has no arguments, so that can be empty. Awesome. All right, let's go back to here. The next thing we have to do is specify a size for it. Okay, so here they do a specific width and a specific height. So we'll just copy that. I'm going to change the width, but you'll see what I'm talking about. All right, and I hate variable names with underscore. I just think it looks stupid. So we're going to change that. All right. Part of this is because it doesn't conform to the Juice coding standards, which say use camel case for this types. Use camel case for variable names. All right. Now, when I was running this, you'll notice that Hello World looks kind of weird. I want it to be landscape because I like landscape apps. Okay, so we're going to change this. Our screen orientation is only going to be landscape Producer. Okay, save, reopen. All right, let's kill it. We're going to run it, and then I'm going to show you how to make the screen full size, because this set size right here is what controls the bounds, what controls the bounds of our component. Now on iOS, the bounds of the window itself are not 600 by 400. They're something else. It's different for every device. So the way to get this value is to call desktop, get instance, not animator, get instance, okay, get displays. Okay, these, in case that, if we're on a machine that's got like 8 displays, it's going to get all of them. We want to get the main display, and then we want the user area. This is the bounds of the area of the display which isn't covered by OS dependent objects like the taskbar menu bar. On iOS, this is the screen resolution. So auto area equals like that. Okay. Get rid of the set size. Make this a little bit bigger. Okay. Auto area equals desktop. The instance of the desktop, we're going to get the main display from the desktop, and we're going to get the user area. If this was on OS X, it would exclude this menu bar up here. All right, now we're going to do set size, area.get width, area.get height. Okay, this is what you do on iOS if you need to set up, if you're trying to figure out the screen resolution. Okay, all right. So now what we can do here with width, instead of 320, we can do get width. Right? And we could do get height times 0.5. Okay. So our add height can be 50% of this. All right, now the next thing we need, based on the tutorial, we need the banner add unit, okay? Now we're not going to use this const char star thing. We're not going to do that. It's not going to, because that's ugly. Okay, we're going to do a string ref. All right, and we don't want to call it that. We just want to call it banner add unit. Okay, this is the Google test banner add unit. That's always going to return an ad whenever you request an ad from Google's ad servers. Okay, so now we can initialize. All right, now this is an interesting line of code. All right, let me break down what happens here. Okay, so we call banner view initialize. Okay, so first we'll throw in our ad unit ID, banner add unit. Ad mob size is going to be our ad size. All right, those two properties are filled in. Oops. Just clean it up a little bit. Now for this ad mob parent, if you remember from the documentation, this needs to be an iOS UI view. So there is a method, or there's a function in the Juice component class. Component get window handle, returns the underlying native window handle for this component. This is what we have to use, and we have to cast it to add parent. Okay, so we're gonna go like this. Okay, we do static cast. Oops, what was that type? All right, we have this parent already, we have this type already specified for us. So we'll just put it in, we'll just copy it, add a cast. There's our type, and we need to do get window handle. All right. So let's talk about what this is going to return. If we take a look at this, this is going to return this is going to return a UI view object. And then static cast is going to cast it to this add parent type, which is a pointer to an iOS UI view. And then that's what gets passed to here. Okay? So if you need to know more about how static cast works, there's a couple pretty awesome videos on YouTube that explain how it works really well. They cover static cast, dynamic cast, const cast, and reinterpret cast. So just be aware that part of that comes from this. We're static casting this. We're just kind of following the pattern that's used here, and in terms of how do we get a reference to an iOS UI view, we call get window handle, right? And that's a component class method. All right. So once that is initialized, if we go back here, we need to look at this comment for history, or I'm sorry, comment about futures. Okay. It says down here, you can register callbacks to be invoked when a future is completed. So the way you do that is you call initialize last result, and then you supply it to this on completion callback. All right, and then we provide the on completion callback and the actual banner as a pointer. All right, so let me show that real quick. All right, so the first thing we need to do is call banner view initialize last result. You see it returns a future, so we're going to just operate directly on that return value, and we have all these choices. So we want to do typed completion callback. Okay, this is what we're going to call. So what that means is that we need to write a Firebase future typed completion callback. All right, and then we need to provide user data. Now this is just taking a regular pointer, so we'll just pass it banner view, not get. We want to pass it banner view.get because banner view, if you remember, is a unique pointer and we want the actual held object. So that's what bannerview.get gives us. Okay. Now where is this defined? Okay, here is the definition of a typed completion callback. Okay, it takes a future. In our case, this is void, because you know this is a template. All right, so we can just copy this and implement it. All right, so we're going to add one of these for what to call when initialization has completed. All right, so and it's easiest if it's just static. Okay, and we'll get rid of this part because that's the name of the method or the name of the function. So we'll go init future callback. All right, and result type because initialize. Whoops, sorry. If we jump to here, you can see that it returns a future of type void. So that means this needs to be void here. Okay, so we are going to call this, and the way you do that is just pass in the static full name of the method. So we go main content component, init future callback. We don't need any of the argument stuff. Just like that. Okay. So now let's implement what's going to happen when this is called. So basically this gets initialized. It's running on a background thread. When it's done being initialized, it's going to call this function. All right. So let's implement that. Void main content component init future callback. Okay. All right. So now let's just add a little debug method. Right here like that. So that way we know when this is done being initialized, that was called. All right, we can just run that and test it out. Oh, whoops. So this is where we need to include Firebase future. That is what I meant. Same for right here. All right, one more time. There it is. All right, that was just called. All right, perfect. Okay, so now we can implement what do we want to have happen when it's initialized. Now, if you remember, over here, we said the first thing you do is you initialize it. When it's done being initialized, you make your request. And then once the request is loaded, then you can actually show it. Or I'm sorry, it goes the other way around. First you initialize. Once it's done being initialized, then you can show it. Then once it's done being shown, then you can actually load it. Okay? So that's what we need to check for. All right, so, and we'll do this by querying the result data status. So here we go switch result data dot status. Okay. Now we want Xcode to provide us all the types by default. So we go, what is this value? Command click on that. It's a future status. Okay. So we go Firebase future status, and we'll just do the first one. All right. And now if we build, it's going to tell us, hey, we're missing a couple other statements. Would you like to add them? Yes. All right, awesome. That provides this. Okay, so now if this is still pending when this gets fired, we're just going to add a jassert false. And same for if it's invalid, we'll add some debug statements. Okay, we'll just do, if it's still pending, we'll just add a debug init. Oops. Still pending. Jassert false. Now the reason for adding the jassert false is if you notice, like, there's just a ton of messages that appear here, and we never get a chance to really look at them and know. So if we add the jassert false, we're going to see init still pending. It's going to pause execution here for us automatically, and we'll be like, oh, okay, that's what's going on. Why did that happen? And then we can go back to our code and add breakpoints in the right spot, as opposed to just having like a bunch of messages that don't mean anything and are really hard to figure out what order they arrived in. Okay, we'll do the same thing here. Debug invalid. Let me spell it right. Assert false. Now, if this actually did happen, if you remember, for banner ads, once it's initialized, you need to show it, and then once it's shown, you can request an ad from Google's server. So the first thing you need to do is show the ad and add the callback to that. So we'll do the same thing we did before, where we call some function on it and then we add a completion handler. Okay, here we go. So if auto banner view equals static cast Firebase add mob banner view, if we can successfully cast the supplied user data to a banner view object, pointer to a banner view, then we can do stuff with it. We can do we can call show and capture, get the return value. Okay, so let's do that. Banner view show. Okay, and then we can do banner view show last result to get the future. And then we can add a callback to that. Okay, on completion, we'll do the same thing we did before. Okay, it wants the same type of callback. All right, and we want it to do something different. Okay, so our user data, we're going to supply the same banner view. Same pointer is going to be passed around. Because remember, these are static functions, so they don't have any reference to this class member right here. All right, we're going to add another one of these. It's going to be static again, and this time it's going to be show future callback. All right. So we'll do the same thing. Main content component, show future callback. All right. That's what's going to basically, if the future has finished being initialized, it's going to call this callback right here. And then this will be complete. And then now we can show the ad. And then when the ad is done being displayed on screen, or sorry, when the actual ad container is done being displayed on screen, we can actually request an ad from Google servers. So let's implement that now. All right. Void, go down here. Void, main content component, show future callback. All right. Now we follow a similar pattern where we do first I'm just going to add a little debug message to let me know that this thing is actually on screen. Like that. Okay. And we'll do the same thing before, where we basically just check the status. So I can just copy this switch statement. And we can do show still pending. And then this is not. This is where all of our dirty work is going to happen. Okay. We will do the same thing that we did before, where we first see if we can cast this user data, this void pointer user data, into an add banner object. So if auto banner view equals static cast Firebase add mob banner view pointer user data. If we can cast our user data to a banner view object type, right, then we can do we can follow the tutorial for our add request. All right. So first, make an add request. All right. Now we can go through this. We don't know a lot of these properties, so we'll fill them all out, or we can leave a lot of them blank. It's not that important. Okay. All right. So we'll just let me change this name. Add request. spell it right, geez. Add request dot, let's see, the first thing we want, gender unknown equals Firebase add mob gender unknown. You may notice on a couple different ads where they're like, when you first sign up, they're like, please enter your name or please enter your birth date and your gender, and that kind of stuff. This is so they can tailor ads to a demographic. Like if you're 16 years old female, they're going to show ads tailored for that. If you're a 50-year-old male, then they're going to show Harley Davidson ads or something, because you're probably going through a midlife crisis. Okay, here we go. Now we need to provide keywords for our ad. Add request dot keywords. Okay, they want an array of const char, so that's pretty easy to write. Okay, so static const char keywords. It's an array. And because it's an array, we can do brackets, and now we can do a couple things like that. Okay, so add mob, C++, we'll do learning. Okay, now we need to supply that equals keywords, and then add request dot keyword count equals, they use some weird formula on this that I'm not quite sure how they come up with it, but it's basically size of keywords divided by size of keywords the first item, which doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. All right, so now we need to provide our test ID. Now this is normally provided the first time you do a request. I've already figured out what that is. It is test IDs. Same bracket thing. It's this. This is like the static test ID, static device ID for iOS simulator. That when you pass it to AdMob, it lets them know like, hey, you're using an iPhone. Hey, you're using an iPad. Hey, you're using Apple Watch. Hey, you're using, well, I don't think it works on Apple Watch. Hey, you're using an Android phone. Hey, you're using an Android tablet. That sort of thing. Okay. So now we need to do the same where we set up our device, test device IDs. Okay, that's going to be test IDs. And we need to do the same thing here with test device count. Add request dot test device ID count equals size of test IDs divided by size of test IDs. There. Okay. Now that we have all that, basically that's all we need to configure our ads. We can do a banner view load ad request like that. All right, now if we run it, we want to be safe. If we can't do the conversion, there's something wrong with our code. Like that. And we should add that same thing here. Conversion failed. Okay, so now if we run this, we should see Google default test ad. All right, here we go. Let me run this again and show you what happened. Oh, by the way, just want to show you something real quick. Okay, so first it pauses on this, pauses right here on it's still pending. When we press play again, there we go. We actually have an ad up here. Okay, so what I wanted to show you was under this, to get test ads on this device, call requests. Now, if you run this on an actual device, you'll get a real device ID here. Okay, so you may have noticed when I ran it this time. Let me get rid of these JAsserts. It's fine if they're still pending. Okay, let me run this one more time. The point I want to make is that you'll notice that ads take a couple seconds to appear. Okay, so awesome, we got our ad to appear. Right, this was written totally with a Juice project. And if we click on it, goes to our developer, Google, that's pretty cool. All right, and it's like native to Juice, which means we can do all of the cool regular component stuff that we know how to do. So an exercise left to the viewer is to then see if you can make it so that an ad only displays for like 10 seconds and then automatically hides or disappears, or slides into this, like when an ad finally becomes an ad request is available. So here's a good example of this. Show future callback. You make their load request. Basically you would do banner view load ad result. To this you would add on to this on completion. When the ad is done being loaded, that's when you would trigger your Juice animation to move. Say you had a component showing holding the ad, you would show that component. That component would move onto the screen, and that would become it's kind of the way that you would animate your ads. It's something that I'm not going to show how to do here, but it's definitely something that is kind of how you can make your ads less intrusive and more just kind of add a little bit of polish to your apps by making the ads kind of come into the screen and come out of the screen and whatnot. All right, hope you got a lot out of that. It's pretty involved, but if you're doing this, you're in it because you want to get your app to monetize via ads in addition to via paid products, or maybe you're trying to do like a little game or something. Anyway, hit me up with some comments if you dug this tutorial and if it helped you work on your own projects. Let me know if there was anything that I left out that you needed explained further. And with that said, good luck on your own projects. Peace.